This year, as gigs are canceled
and stages go dark,
it can feel hopeless.
Don't let the lights go out on you or your bandmates.
Your union brothers and sisters are here for you.
the AFM is fighting to get members help with unemployment assistance.
We're working in D.C. to help protect working people.
And we're standing up to get musicians back performing safely.
And most importantly, we want you to be healthy both physically and mentally.
Please reach out and check in on your friends.
It's okay to ask if they're okay, and it's okay to not be okay.
We will return again when the curtains call.
Until then, stay safe.
Stay healthy.
stay positive.
Find more resources and assistance
At AFM.org/help.
And remember,
Together, we are stronger.
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 Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever and wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to another episode of Conical Supremacy. My name's John Noreko, and I'd like to take a second to introduce my co-host and the guy who thought this thing up, Mr. Doug Tornquist. Hey, Doug, how you doing today, man?
Good. So what are you sitting in? Is that a vortex to a black hole? Or
Well, that describes my life most of the time, but no, Quinn got some new gear, so we're kind of messing around. This is actually the inside of my C tuba.
Oh.
And as you know, mine's all raw, so those are all the brush marks all around the inside of the bell and everything.
Yeah. You don't play very often with a mute, do you?
No. I'm a firm believer that that's just a waste of money. I could play pianissimo if you want to, man. It's all good.
All right.
So, hey, man, how was your week this week?
My week was fine. A little this, a little that. Not so much teaching. We're done with that. A little bit of work.
Yeah, you got to do some a record date or something to that effect?
I did a record date with a pop star. It was just like the old days.
I know, man. I remember those days back in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So that's great. Got out of the house. Did any other playing this week?
Yeah, we worked on another film. We worked on this one called Sing 2. It's a sequel to Sing with the British composer named Joby Talbot. I had played his ballet here, Alice in Wonderland, years ago. And just an incredible creative composer. And he's very busy with ballet commissions. I had a little conversation with him. He's got one coming up for Covent Garden and the Met.
Outstanding.
Yeah. And anyway, he was here to work on Sing 2. So we had a day and a half of that.
Well, that sounds fun. Well, I mean, something to play.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, he's there's this crop of young British composers who really like to write very colorful things for the instruments. It's anything but standard writing. It's little high solos or the tuba used as like the bottom of the French horn section, some rather high tuba notes. Not too many quirky little solos, but that's okay.
So you had to bring a couple of axes then to the session then, huh?
Yeah, I think I brought 3 or 4.
What did you end up using?
I used the Minor Weston, the new one, most of the time, and then they wanted something louder, so I used the old 188 just because it's a little brighter. And then
it can cut, baby. It can cut.
It cuts. and then the 822, of course.
Yeah.
For some of the higher stuff. So, it was nice. And then yesterday we had the annual or semi-annual USC film scoring demo. Where I think it was 15 composers wrote cues. And very fascinating. The whole day was dedicated to the memory of Georges Delerue.
Oh, cool.
Yes, his widow was there, Colette, and so the young composers were asked to write music in the style of Delerue, which was really interesting. I love his music, and I saw him years ago when I was a student. He brought the brass section of the French National Orchestra to USC. and they did a 2-hour-long concert of the brass music of Georges Delerue. I mean, I'll never forget it. Yeah, it was incredible.
Wow, man.
I've never seen anything like it, and it just happened to be like, oh, tonight there's a concert across the street of the French National Orchestra and Georges Delerue, who was there, conducting.
So I got to ask you, did these students stick it or what? I mean, did they get did they get the George thing? But I guess more importantly, anybody stand out? We got some young aspirers coming up or what?
They're all fantastic. I mean, every year it gets so much better. I mean, I can remember years ago you do this and the parts would be handwritten, and some of it was really not very good at all. But the level now, I mean, they're all ready to start work tomorrow.
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about this over the last, I think it's 30 shows now, right, Q?
Cheers.
This is our 29th.
29th. This is our 29th.
Okay.
But we keep talking about this going, everybody had to kind of up their game with all the stuff over this last year. And I think it's showing in a lot of different ways. Speaking of writing, Doug, and especially writing for, brass and tuba and stuff like that, you had a good week. But today our guest knows just so much about this. And the record that we're going to be featuring is actually, I believe it was Grammy nominated. I mean, it's just some great music. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about that writing style, about getting out and pushing what we can do and stuff like that. And I think our guest definitely does that. But, with my band, I have a lot of guys that I have a bucket list that I want to play with, by the time it's done. And actually you've played with a bunch, because I'd love to work for John Williams. I would love to work with Alan Silvestri. You've done that. I would love to work with Michael Giacchino. I mean, the G-Man would be fun as hell. But then I've got a bunch of jazz guys that are still on my list, like Jack DeJohnette and specifically Pat Metheny. And one of the things that, and I'm a huge Pat Metheny fan. The guy is sublime, and the command of his instrument is just ridiculous. But when he and Lyle Mays were together on the band, the music that came out was this ethereal jazz that touched everybody, and the playing was just phenomenal. And the tune I'd like to play right now, I wrote this with that Metheny style in mind. And so it goes a bunch of different places, but one of my favorite things has been for like the last 10 years are augmented sonorities. And I try to use it a lot in my blowing and writing and stuff like that. But I have to give a shout out to the guitar player on this. He was my favorite guitar player in LA, and he's no longer with us. He went way too soon. And Larry Giannichini was the consummate guitar player. Anything you wanted, didn't matter, from Hendrix to bebop to Metheny, whatever it was. And I kind of dedicate this tune to him. He was one of the first guys in town when I moved here to take me seriously as a jazz player, and he never said no. Every time I had a gig, he'd never say no. So if you don't mind, here's a tune that I call Zev, and almost my daughter's name, but my parents wouldn't sign off on it. But I don't know. I just really love this piece a lot. So if you don't mind, go ahead, Quinn. Here's a little Zev. So today, as all of you have just heard, we have the one and only Mr. Jim Self with us, but also we're going to be talking about the fabulous music and writing of Mr. David Angel. Hey, Jim, thank you so much for showing up today, and thanks for taking some time out of your Sunday for hanging out with us and featuring David's music. The big deal right now, man, is that you are kind of like the senior producer for this new project. Can you give us a little heads up on this?
Well, just before I do that, I want to say something about the last tune you heard.
Absolutely. Heather on the Hill.
It's from an album I did for Concord Records of almost 30 years ago now, called Tricky Licks Band. And it's available on Concord. All my stuff is available at jimself.com also. But I asked David Angel back then to write a chart, and I asked him to write in that contrapuntal chorale kind of style that he is a master doing. And he told me later on he applied for a professorship at a conservatory in Switzerland, and they presented this recording, and he says it helped him get the job.
Yeah, well, you couldn't get anybody on that session, man. I mean, it was like you and Gary Foster and Warren Looney, and who else was on that?
Bill Booth. Alan Estes on drums,
right.
And Joel Hamilton on bass, and John Kernick on guitar.
Yeah. Like I said, you couldn't get anybody, right? I mean, of course, it's going to sound fabulous. It's just wonderful.
Los Angeles is full of so many great musicians that if you do something and you don't have a good one on there, you're not paying attention.
You're not doing it right. Well, hey man, you went talked to Doug and I about this a while ago, about this whole project that you decided to pull off, and this is a 3 CD set, right, man?
Yes, it is.
I mean, that's ridiculous for the amount of music that it is, but Doug's got it right there. But it's the liner notes that are so friggin' cool, right, Doug?
Yeah, it's like 28 pages. Beautiful pictures. There's a little personal note for every tune, and beautiful pictures.
Picture of the band.
Yeah, picture of the band on the cover. Really just a stunning thing, the kind of thing you don't see anymore. I mean, Jim, how long did it take you to make this?
Well, let me just tell you a little bit about the story. David's had this rehearsal band for over 50 years at the Musicians Union, and every famous jazz musician you can imagine, from Art Pepper to Gary Foster and many, many more, played on his band. And it's 13 pieces. It's more of a large jazz ensemble. And I play tuba and bass trombone on the band, and have for several years. And David doesn't have the resources or the the chutzpah, if you will, to produce a CD. So I decided to do it for him. And the band was ecstatic about it, because his music needs to be out to the world. It can't be just a rehearsal band. It can't be just an inside thing amongst the jazz musicians.
Now, the writing is too beautiful, man.
Yeah. He's an incredible. I describe his music as Gil Evans, the famous New York jazz writer, meets J.S. Bach, and that's kind of intriguing. I think it's because, but what I mean by that is it's very much the harmonies and the soloing and the kind of things that you might hear in a Gil Evans production, but with a very contrapuntal polyphonic aspect to everything. The tuba part and every other part in the band is constantly moving around, and David's a specialist at this, and that's one of the unique things about it. The band is never loud. In the rehearsals, we never play loud. He doesn't like people that play that way, that blast out trumpet parts and stuff. He wants it subtle. He wants it to sound like chamber music, and it does. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of energy and and it's packed full of great soloists, of course. Yeah. And it's just been a joy for me. It's taken a whole year, and because of the pandemic, I was able to do a lot of it online, mixing and things like that.
Wow.
We recorded 22 songs, almost 3 hours of music in 4 days at a union scale, of course. And Tally Sherwood, the great Tally Sherwood, who's done many of my albums, was the engineer on this.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, David wasn't able to be with us today, but he kind of is, because we have a little virtual of him right now. And I think it'd be really great for the audience to hear in David's words how he came up and the sound that he has. And we're going to let this kind of run all the way through, because we got a lot of music to get through, and I want everybody to hear this stuff. So here's a little David Angel on how he got started and where he's going.
I can't remember the date of the beginning of the band, but I guess it was in the 60s, and it developed from there. The instrumentation changed a little bit over the years, but not too much. And at one time we had 4 saxes and 6 brass. Now we have 5 brass, 5 saxes, which allows me to bring out a double quintet arrangement once in a while, where it would be an octet with 5 horns, except every horn is doubled. And we have some charts like that. And as I said, in a rehearsal band, you can do a lot of things that are different. But I wanted to say that I'm sitting between 2 fine composers. This man I've admired for so many years, listening to his music. He did an album years ago of just ballads where he played alto, and it just murdered me. It was so beautiful. And this man's written a lot of orchestral music and has had it played all over the world. So I'm honored to have both of these people give me some credit that I'm not sure I deserve, but when you get older, they always call you master if you live long enough.
And you're a legend, right?
But yeah, I worked in television and movies for a long time, just as a so-called orchestrator. What I mean is I did 90% composing and 10% orchestrating. That's how Hollywood works. At least it did when I was working. I don't know today. But I'm just honored to have this chance to have my music played on a record, and I owe Jim a lot for that. And as I said, I'm honored to have Kim involved with us. It just knocked me out when he said he would come and help us. But yeah, the band is part of my life, a big part, and the sextet with 6 saxophones. We have 2 books, 6 saxophones in rhythm, where we play jazz tunes, and then 6 saxophones a cappella, where we just play compositions. And yeah, I've always been writing, so I have 200 saxophone trios, according to Steve Kravitz. He counted them one time and said, "You've written 200 saxophone trios." So I don't know where they are, but I remember that he said it.
We'll start by saying, David, what's your feeling about this band?
I've been with this band so long that I think the feeling is that every player is a soloist, and the ensembles are made up of soloists. So my attitude is a jazz quintet with rhythm section, tenor, and trumpet is the basis for the phrasing in my band. I see it as a jazz band, even though sometimes it gets into other directions. That's the beauty of a rehearsal band, is you can do things that you cannot do if you're playing a lot of gigs. So hopefully the charts we're playing on this recording will express more how I feel about the band than anything else.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So the words of Mr. David Angel right there, and I mean, I don't think we can. He kind of laid it all out for us, didn't he? I mean, it's just wonderful that that you got behind this project, Jim. I mean, that tune was called Hershey Bar, right?
That's
And-
Hershey Bar,
yeah.
written by Johnny Mandel.
Right.
And unfortunately, he passed away just before I was able to get a CD to him. And it's a great jazz standard. Most of the tunes on the album are original pieces by David, but there's a few arrangements too.
So here's one thing I think the audience will be interested in, especially since Doug and I talk about this a lot. What's on the stand? And for me, when I'm working, there is no stand. You either know it or you don't. But in a situation like this band, for you, Jim, so for instance, you had changes up for your solo.
Yeah.
And that was that. And for those of you out here that don't know, that those are the chord changes, and that's it. The rest is kind of up to you, and you're supposed to know your stuff. But I think the choices that we all make, especially when we're improvising, has a lot to do with the nature of the tune, the nature of the arrangement, what kind of stuff. And one thing that I always tell my students about this is just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do it. And one of the things I liked about your solo on that, and David's as well, first of all, I think it personifies who you guys are, which is what we're all looking for. But also, you stayed within that the nature of the tune. There wasn't a whole lot of bebop going along. There was just this swingy thing and stuff like that. And I think for younger players, I mean, I was in that mode when I was in my 20s, where a shit ton of notes is great, and that's not necessarily the case. And one, I saw this. Yeah, well, I mean,
everyone on this band can can play a million notes if they want to. But this is a band of subtleness and beauty. And there are some very exciting moments by some of the other players, trumpets and saxophones and stuff, but it's never loud and aggressive and show off, ever. And
Well, I mean,
David likes that.
Yeah, well, and I don't blame him too, because it's not ego driven; it's just music driven, and I think that's my goal always is should be about the music, and I think this recording really and the recordings coming up are going to really show that this band is truly about the music and things
Absolutely.
to that effect. I mean, Doug, you've been on a couple of sessions where you've had to do the jazz thing and everything, and it's a different way of thinking, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean,
You still got to play you still got to play your acts right, but it's a different approach, I think. At least that's how I think about it.
Yes, and I won't take up too much time because I'm definitely not the person who knows the most today. But I mean, we talked about this before. You know, I learned to play this style of music. One at playing with Make Believe Brass at Disneyland, and two, I was lucky enough to be asked to play with Jimmy Cleveland's band. Jimmy had a rehearsal band at the Union, and Jimmy was just an incredible player. In that book, I think it was eight pieces, and we're trying to find the library. I mean, if anyone knows where the Jimmy Cleveland library went, please phone in.
Put that
But the tuba parts were incredible, and I was not trained to play that kind of music. I was trained to sight read. Okay, so I'd just be sitting there watching it go by, like, what's going on, And so once you realize, okay, this music doesn't sound like it looks, or it doesn't look like it sounds, then you start seeing, oh, I see the notation is just that. It's a picture of the music.
Right.
The feel of it comes from the players and the people in the room, and that's not something you're taught so much at traditional music school. But,
yeah, I actually don't think in a lot of jazz studies they don't really teach it in that form, and I think you've said that very eloquently, where if you look at it as the picture, that's how it's supposed to sound. And not note to note, not this to this, but the phrases, everything else. Do you agree with that, Jim? I mean,
Oh,
I think
yes, absolutely. And the thing I've learned over a lot of years in trying to be a better jazz musician is, and I met a man named John Chiudini, who happens to be the guitar player on David's band, as well as I met him, and we have done 2 albums. We're getting ready to do a 3rd one. He and I have this magic between us, and he was playing behind my solo here a minute ago, and I just can't play something wrong almost with him. And you certainly have to swing when he's playing.
Yeah, man.
It's just the way he is, and he's like this rock for the whole band. And I think the secret for me, and for I think most of everybody that I really value, including you especially, is the secret is playing melodies. Create a melody. Don't worry about the changes so much. Play the melody. Play something that's logical that goes someplace else and has some passion to it, I guess, maybe.
Well, I mean, I'll bring up one of my favorite Louis Armstrong stories with that, and I think everybody should take this to heart. He was doing this show on the West Coast, and this guy showed up every single night, 5 nights in a row, and Louis would play one of his signature songs, but he would play the same solo every night. And the guy got backstage after the last night and got to talk to Pops and said, "Hey man, I got to ask you, why did you play the same solo every night on this tune?" And he goes, "Because it's a good one." And enough said. I mean, if you're talking to Pops, the guy kind of invented this thing. So, and I tell my students this a lot too, never be afraid to play the melody. Never be afraid to paraphrase the melody, because that's really what Pops taught us, was how to paraphrase things and how to make that our own type of thing. And that's one of the things that I think David has been really, really good at, because when you listen to his music, you pretty much know it's David Angel. I mean,
I do.
It's just like, remember, you and I were talking about, we're both big Marty Page fans, and you always know when it's Marty Page. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. That's the way it works. That's the way it sounds. And I think, I wish there were more guys out there who would do that instead of succumbing to, well, I need you to sound like John Williams, or I need you to sound like, Quincy Jones, or I need you to sound like, because, I'm only paying you this much, but I want this,
Well, I can tell you, the album title is called Out on the Coast. And David was strongly influenced by the West Coast sound of the 60s. And that famous, the Lighthouse Gang, and there was a sound, and a lot of great players from that era that were out here. And it's all through his feeling about music. And it's a lot of people's favorite music, kind of jazz, by the way, the West Coast style.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Art Pepper was part of that, and even Coltrane, and people like that were part of it, and so many great players of that era. And David is steeped in it, I guess. He's also steeped in classical music. He's written a book on theory. He knows everything from Greek music on up. And you can probably tell when you certainly listen to the ballads on this album, he's very influenced by the Impressionists, by Debussy and Ravel particularly. But you'll hear a lot of that. That's a big part of his influence, okay? But it is a jazz band. Every tune has improvised solos on it. And that's one of the joys for me, is to play in a band like this. Not very many bands allow the tuba player to, if there is a tuba, to play jazz solos, so they don't trust him. And
that's why I started my own.
Well, exactly. Well, I've had to do it too. And for what it's worth, I played with Marty Page and his Dectet, toured Japan with him, and made a couple albums, and Meltrame, and David was strongly influenced by Marty Page. It's in the notes of the album.
Yeah, you can tell.
And Gil Evans, of course, too, and Bill Holman, and other people from that era. And
also too, Jim, it's that sound, because all those guys were on the West Coast at the same time. And Holman's one of my favorite big band writers, and just because of the inventiveness that's behind it. But he's still got that sound. Of course, you can always tell it's Bill Holman, but it's that West Coast thing that we've been talking about, that's got that whole allure. And I think one of the things that I find really is it's for those who aren't indoctrinated into the jazz idiom, it's listening to this stuff makes it pretty easy to get into.
You would say this is easier to listen to than a lot of loud, aggressive, big band music to me. And
well, it's also more intimate. I think that the intimacy is a big sell, in my opinion. There's nothing better than playing in a small club where you're, this far from the tenor player, and they're not playing loud, and you can feel the whole band coming at you too. But it's similar with the three of us know what that's like too when we're playing, and in the orchestra, because we got the best seat in the house as far as the orchestra is concerned, and everybody's dug in, and they're just getting it done. And you're sitting there going 64, 65, but you forget what bar it is because there's so much great stuff going on. Truly.
In David's band, I sit there and Ron Stout's sitting behind me.
I was just going to talk about Ron right now.
Yeah, he's one of the two trumpet players along with Jonathan Dane. And I love the way he plays the flugelhorn, Ron. And I'll turn around and listen to his solo, and there's so many tunes on this album where he's featured, and I get lost when I say I forget to come back into my own part at the end of his solo, or to play the background behind his second chorus or something, because I'm so engrossed in what he's doing. and the band is full of these kind of guys. Gene Cipriano's on here, 92 years old, and he has a wonderful solo on Prelude to a Kiss by Duke Ellington, and and he makes me feel young, and I ain't young.
When you talk about Ron Stout, I just want everybody out there in the audience to Google him, look up his stuff. Ron and I have known each other for a long time, and once again, he actually, when I first came to town, was one of the few guys that took me seriously, and he was on the last record that I made. But I honestly believe that he is one of the quintessential improvisers of our time.
Yes.
The amount of information that he knows and his level of musicality and playing is unparalleled. Is just you're right, Jim. I get lost every. I mean, we had him on a gig before the pandemic, El My Steady, and I was listening to him instead of playing what he needed. It's just ridiculous stuff, man.
David says about Ron, he says I never heard him play a wrong note.
Nope, you never will.
And besides that, it's musical. It's in tune, like a classical player. It floats. The connections, his slurring is just impeccable. It's as good as any classical oboe player or anything else.
Well, as Doug likes to say, there's no white noise in there.
No. Tom Peterson's on the band, a great tenor player, and Tom was with Doc Severinsen for many years. One of the in the Tonight Show band. And the band is that way all the way through. Scott Whitfield that sits next to me on tenor trombone, and man, his solos are the most interesting solos you'll ever hear any trombone.
Well, not only but Scott Whitfield is also an amazing trombone player, but a wonderful writer and singer. I've got to play with Scott over the years a bunch of times, and never lets down. He never lets you down, man. It's always something cool to listen to, something great, this, that, and the other thing. And he's a sweet cat too. And I mean, I think that's one of the things about the band up here is that everybody up there, is that Stephanie too?
Stephanie's playing French horn.
Stephanie's playing French horn.
She's our new president of the union.
Yeah, I know. We had her on the show. Just that's why. Big shout out to Stephanie.
Unfortunately, I don't think she'll be able to play in the future because of the union gig, But she's sure at it. She's featured on a wonderful Billy Strayhorn tune.
Well, hey, if you don't mind, Jim, I'd like to get back to a little bit more of the music, and we're going to preface this one. This is called Between, right, Quinn? So, but we've got somebody talking about the band in front of it. So let's throw this up right now, Q, and go. Go for it.
Something about it, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. This tune is one of David's newer tunes. He wrote it probably in the last 3 or 4 years, and you can actually look at the score and see his intricate writing and his contrapuntal writing and how he voices things. It goes by pretty fast, but this is an original piece by David, okay? And I'll let it go from there, okay?
Yeah, let's let that think. Here's a little Kim Richmond talking about the band.
I'm inspired by this band. This is and by this fellow next to me here. He's got a lot of heart that he puts into his music, and I think that's part of what it is. And if I'm not mistaken, you write what you write with a lot of intuition. I think that you just feel a certain way. I was impressed by that because at one point when I was playing in your band, and you started off with a composition and it was very original and so forth, and finally after about 60 seconds or a minute and a half, you went into a standard tune. And I said, David, what does this have to do with the standard tune? He says, I don't know, I just heard it. I just heard that, I just felt that way. So I love that, that's just great. And you feel how it links up after you play it a while. But I'm just a great admirer of Dave's, and I'm really thrilled to be part of this project and to play in his band when I can and when he'll have me. So it's a lot of fun. It's a different kind of band. There's no band like it around that I've ever heard. And I think Jim started by saying that it's a combination of several people, but I think it's uncategorizable, really. There's a lot of counterpoint, which you don't hear a lot in jazz, especially big band writing, and the ability to, or the opportunity to play softly is unique with this band, I think, because not everything is loud and brash. In fact, most of it isn't. It's very intimate. And so that's kind of some of the things I think about it.
Hey man, we got as close as we did, man. I tried to sync those files up and everything and animate that whole thing, but it was pretty close. So we
Yeah, it
want
was
to.
good. Yeah, I wanted to say a couple of things though right before, and
Yeah, come on, man.
Kim Richmond, of course, is a very famous saxophone player and musician here in town, big band leader, and many
Writer,
albums,
everything.
and he's been a sub on David's band frequently. But we asked him to be our tone meister. He sat in the booth, and he knows as much about music as anybody I know. And but something else, the connection is that the cover was drawn by his wife, who's a very famous artist, Chris
she is.
Zambone. She's a very famous oil painter and acrylics painter, and she drew us an original work. So
Yeah, I love her work. It's one of Tammy's favorite artists. She's actually had her out to do a couple of shows when the union's been doing some art stuff and everything. They're like the perfect artistic power couple, man. I mean, because no, I'm serious. But Kim is one of the, once again, just like Ron, in my opinion, one of the superlative improvisers of our time.
Yeah.
And one thing that came up yesterday we were talking about was spontaneous melodic invention, and that's truly, I think, the definition for improvisation is that spontaneous melodic invention, and Kim is an absolute master at it.
Yes, he is.
It's just, and the sound of the band, and maybe we can talk a little bit because we're running out of time right now, but was all that close mic'd? Was all that in a room? Was it separated?
We were all in a room. The drummer was in a booth. We had headphones so we could, and the guitar player and the bass, they were in booths. We had to be separated. It was a small studio. Even if it had been a bigger room, it would take a great big room and you'd still be separated because you can't get a good mix if you're all playing together. And the music is very complex. We never had more than 2 takes of anything.
Well, that was good. That was going to be my next question too, because the way I like to record is old 1960s style, which is, slap a couple mics up, whatever happens, happens, and you got to live with it. And that's the way it is. But
we thought about that, but this music is so complex that it was a little risky in a sense. Now there is one other recording of David out there played pretty much just like that. And we played in clubs occasionally with his recordings, but I'm so used to a really first-class product, and these days you can't put something out that's not absolutely first class.
Absolutely.
And so that's if it's got to be my name on it as producing it, it's got to be that way, and that's why
I agree.
Everything about it, from that beautiful cover to but especially to David's music is.
Doug, you had something?
Oh, I just want to shout out to your co-producer, Tally Sherwood. I mean, first of all, he's, we recorded your other album there, and that room he's got in his studio, that is the most comfortable room to play in I've ever been in. And whatever you're doing, he makes it sound better. He's just the most incredible engineer. And I can tell that he had, his fingerprints are all over this, and that's a great thing, because I'm sure that, I know you got the best players there are, but with Tally, he just takes it up a notch and makes everybody sound as good as they can.
He really does, and he's a really easy man to work with too. I've done many albums with him now, and the one you worked on, of course, was the Flying Circus Brass Quintet album, which is basically classical music. And he's got ears on that level. He's pretty well known in town as being the top jazz engineer, and he's done so many albums for so many famous people, and I just like him so much personally, and I like him particularly musically. His ears, wow, he hears everything.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're running a little bit short on time here, and I want to kind of sum things up for everybody out there. First of all, I'd like to thank Jim for taking some time out with us today, and also for having the foresight to get a project like this done. I think it's I mean, we've all made records, but when you do something like this takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and you got to be invested in it. And I want to thank you for that. I'd also like to thank David Angel for superlative writing and just absolutely wonderful music. And thank you so much for being there for us and throwing it out there like this. Doug, you got anything else, man?
Well, yeah. I mean, Jim, you've made, I always have, I mean, Jim, you've made 30 records now?
Oh,
I mean,
18.
okay, well, that's a
30.
lot.
It feels like 30.
Going on 30. Yeah, there's 3 in the fire right now too.
See,
so, but
I mean, and that's the thing that amazes me is that, you know, you've never let grass grow under your feet. You're always on the move. You're always doing a new project. And I look at this and I think, what a great thing you did for yourself. You know, you put yourself in the midst of this band surrounded by these great jazz players. I remember standing next to you at Yuan Racy's birthday party. It was his 88th birthday party. We were in his backyard and there was this band playing. And I mean, every person in that band was a superstar. And you just turned to me and you said, you know, the greatest thing about this is that we get to work with giants. And you did that for yourself and for us. And you put this product out there. And, you know, I think I'm extremely grateful that you did that, you know, for yourself and for David and for our community. It's just
I'd like to say that, you know, if you don't know it, Doug is one of my former students, and he's the king of the hill as far as I'm concerned in Los Angeles now, and my colleague at USC. And John is one of the great jazz players of, maybe the great jazz player playing the tuba right now. And
thank you, sir.
And he can play bebop better than any tuba player ever could, I think, and many other things. But writing, he's and smart people. And as Doug knows, through all the years we worked together at USC, a good big part of my emphasis is teaching students to use their ears and to improvise, compose, to do all the things that I wish I'd done when I was 20. And he probably got a certain amount of that too, way back when he studied with me. So it's just, we got to move to a new level with music. Tuba players do. Can't be stuck back playing oompa or playing Tchaikovsky symphonies. We have to do a lot more nowadays.
Move it. We got to move it ahead. Otherwise, we're not going to work. And that's just the way it is. Well, hey, everybody. We're going to throw up all the information that you need to get a hold of this CD as soon as we get out of here. And we're going to go ahead and play Heather on the Hill again for you because it's just a great chart on the way out. I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in today for this wonderful rendition of Conical Supremacy. We're going to be back again next week, same bat time, same bat channel. I think we'll see. We got a guess, but I'm still waiting for a yes. But the rest of this month, we got Tim Busby coming up in a couple of weeks. And we're just having fun out here. And once again, my many, many thanks to Mr. Jim Self for your time and your effort and your artistry. Also, thank you once again, my co-host, Mr. Doug Tornquist. Love you, man. And we're going to be back again next week. So everybody, peace out there. Have a wonderful Mother's Day. And, you know, treat each other good. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.